course, I forgot my windscreen for my DJI mic, and it is windy outside, but oh well. What's good? We outside. It is finally nice again, nice enough to go on a good old-fashioned walk and talk without freezing my tushki off. And oh shoot, yeah, I almost just lost my ankle, but it's cool. Anyways, how y'all doing? I hope everybody's doing good. I wanted to talk about editing for today's walk and talk, today's little vlog, because recently I dove back into the world of editing, and there's been so many things firing off in my brain, so many like benefits, old things that I didn't realize I was like, getting from editing, little nuances that I have now grown past and outgrown from like my previous editing kind of tendencies and all that stuff. So yeah, I just want to jump in and share and create a discussion around it. But the first bit is like, I had stopped editing for a while, because I had reached a point in my company where things were like too overwhelming for one person. And in my brain, I was like, okay, well, I guess it's time to hire an editor and try and, let them focus on handling the post-production stuff. And then myself focus on like the filming, the sales, all that stuff. So that's what I did. And that was kind of a difficult decision because, as most of us know, the editing is like where you put your own sauce, So it's very difficult to like release the reins of being like, oh, like I'm producing like a Cameron Vlogs or a Mindsville Media product or video, but someone else is going to like bake it, like that's a difficult thing to let go of and trust that it's going to be made right. But I found my editor, I trained him, and I got him to a position where that was a thing. And so for a while, that was how things ran in the company. And it's just slowly over time, it's like that works where it's supposed to, and for whatever goals you're trying to set out. But eventually I reached a point where like the work started to feel like work, like really heavy work, and I was losing that like connection, that love to what I do. So finally, the thing that was kind of like the nail in the coffin was this past season was really busy, and that was on purpose. I had advertised quite a bit more, and I wanted to, try and scale up the company from where we were. I thought we were ready. Long story short, we weren't quite ready, and it really caused like a pretty big backup in our timeline, and like just our quality to deliver as a company. And I didn't like that. So I kind of reviewed everything and then realized I was like, okay, like the main area where we're getting backed up is the editing. So I decided to jump back in and do my own editing alongside my editor that I had already hired. And that right there is when I kind of like, it's like the plug like kind of finally went back into the outlet and the power came back on, It's like all my creativity and like the love that I was missing for, filming, for vlogging, for all that stuff. Like it just started to like flood back to me, Finney's taking a little poo-poo. Got the windscreen. We should be protected now. What was I talking about? I think I was just kind of going on about reconnecting with editing and the plug finally being plugged back in once I started editing myself. And like I said, like that creativity, that love for the craft just started like flooding back in. And now like it was slow at first. It was like maybe like the first week or so, like I felt rusty and I was excited, but I can confidently say like I didn't necessarily like love the editing again just yet. I was just like, okay, like this feels good. But then after like week 2 or 3, man, I'm fully back in love with it now. And I've kind of just committed to like being like, nah, like I always want to try keeping up with editing, you know, to some extent, to some degree, because it just feels good, you know, just makes me feel like I am like getting a chance to flex my creative muscles. It's fun, and it works good for my brain. Editing is almost like solving a puzzle at times, because even when you plan things, there are other elements that go into video production that you just kind of have to play with, you know? You see what fits where, how this sounds with this background music, or, you know, whatever it may be. And that stuff is fun to me. It's like a nice mental exercise for me.
Good for the belly to walk. Nice.
Sure, he always has to stop and smell. Not editing also translated to a lot of like negative things that I myself as a filmmaker and as a vlogger and a creative did not really notice, but also didn't really like once I did notice. The first thing was that like I started to lose connection with the final like video or product, right? It affects you in a lot of sneaky ways that like you don't always expect, you know? I think I talked about this in a vlogcast the other day. And funny enough, the next vlogcast is going to be about editing and about my post-production workflow. So if you're watching this and you want to know like what my filmmaking post-production workflow is, or if you have questions about those things, let me know now. Drop a comment below or something, and I can factor it into the actual vlogcast and answer those questions directly for you. But yeah, the not editing was making it so that I didn't, whatchamacallit, like I just wasn't connected with the final product, the final video in the end. And it was affecting how things looked, you know, like I wasn't remembering to get certain shots, you know, that normally were just like second nature to me. You kind of like lose, you know, that like awareness of like, oh, if I want to paint the picture this way, I should get this shot, and this shot. You know, you keep the basics of like, okay, I always want to try and capture this, and this, but the little tiny details, or like the, you know, creative ability to like think on the spot, or like identify, you know, additional things on the spot that would be nice or helpful to have in the final video, that starts to like go away. And so that was something that, again, I didn't realize, but it was just happening, you know? And so I was like, oh man, like, I don't like the only time that I did realize it was when I started looking at my videos. And at first I was like kind of blaming my editor, and I was like, yeah, man, like, we need this to be like this. Like, I'm sending you this sample material and it looks like this. And he was like, I used everything I have. And so then that was kind of like the aha moment where I was like, oh shoot, like, this is definitely a cam problem, not a editor problem, you know? The editing, I just didn't realize how like enjoyable that was to me, even if it was with pressure and timelines and, you know, client projects that I had to meet and stuff like that. Like, the formula I was actually searching for was to be able to ease the editing workload, not to just entirely replace it. So that's something that I think is valuable to keep in mind if you are someone who's maybe struggling with keeping up with edits, or you're looking at hiring someone else to do your edits for you. Really take the time and think, like, do I want to completely get rid of this process off of my plate, or do I just want to help alleviate some of the overflow? Because that's crucial. That is crucial. And I don't think I made the wrong decision. I never am afraid of failing, you know? And I think it's part of the process. But I will say, now that I've reached kind of the point of reconnecting with the editing, looking back over the past year, basically, of figuring out what it's like to have it replaced, I would have chosen to just alleviate the pressure had I known how this would have played out and how it would have made me feel. So yeah, that's number 2. And then number 3 is kind of like the inverse of of number 1, which is, if you stop editing, you kind of lose some creative edge. But when you keep editing, it makes you a better vlogger, filmmaker, photographer. Like, you know, it makes you better when you're out in the field, basically. And that is something that I'm also seeing return tenfold. And I just absolutely love that, man. Like, I love being sharp and witty and on my game when it comes to my filming, to my vlogging. all that stuff. Like, it just feels good, you know? And when you're editing, you see little gaps or little places where you're like, ooh, like a shot like this really would have helped like knock this out the park. Or like, I'm struggling to tell this story while, you know, I'm talking in the A-roll, or while the client's talking in the interview or the A-roll. And so it would have been much better if I would have made a note to capture B-roll, covering the topics they're talking about. You know, like, it's that stuff that like really translates and matters and helps you grow, kind of like almost subconsciously as a vlogger and a filmmaker. So yeah, those are like my 3 little things on editing, and I'm very curious on like how you guys feel about editing, and you know, what your kind of journeys or experiences are with them, if at all. And then I also am curious on like what y'all are editing on. Like, my next kind of editing goals, I want to learn a new program, like a new ecosystem. So I started with Final Cut Pro, and I'm very rusty with Final Cut at this point. But that was like what I came up on. That's what I started my business on. Eventually I transitioned into Premiere, because Premiere is more of a industry standard, and it's just more of like an everyone editing system. Like, everybody I know has at some point or another touched Adobe, Premiere, After Effects, all that stuff. It's just kind of like, it's the gold standard. So that's where I'm currently at. But I want to learn how to use DaVinci, because DaVinci has been floating around obviously for a minute, and it's grown quite a bit in popularity and usability. So I want to get familiar with that. I want to familiarize myself in that space. And any other editing things, like I'm thinking about looking into a couple different courses and things like that, but I'm curious. Let's open the stage, man, and let's get back into walk and talks with our little community, because I think it's fun, and they are fun things for me to turn on and watch while I'm editing, of course, or, you know, doing office work, and also fun for me to get out and just connect and, you know, have these types of vlogs and stuff. But that's it, man. I hope everybody's having a great day, and I guess I'll catch you on the next one.